Welcome back to another Knowing You show. In a moment, we're going to have Joyia here talking about the Wheel of Consent. Welcome, Joyia. I'm so
Thank you,
happy that you're
Tiffany.
here. Yeah. So, for those of you who don't yet know her, she is a Yukon based, yes, right close enough to Alaska to almost be in Alaska. She is a holistic health and self mastery guide committed to being a space for healing trauma and supporting people in cultivating balance and partnership at all levels of body, mind, and spirit. She leaves people emboldened in their capacity to connect with their highest self and others, causing a paradigm shift for the world, which is something that we desperately need right now in our society. And I love Joya. She's also a student of mine and just someone who's like good people's, like the kind that if we lived close and not super far away, we'd hang out.
Aw. Thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes. Tell me about the wheel of consent. What does that mean? Now, we hear the word consent and think that it's some obvious thing, but there's a lot of nuances. So give us some wheel of consent info.
Yeah. Maybe a good place to start would be with the definition.
Okay.
So, like you said, most, it's there's a lot of layers to consent. But for the most part, I think in society today, when we hear the word consent, we hear it in the context of getting. How do I get permission? Right? How do I get permission from somebody to do the thing I want? Or how do I get
Mhm.
permission to from someone to actually do the thing that I want them to do? Right?
Mhm.
Um, what the wheel of consent does is it expands on that definition in that the definition becomes consent is an agreement between two or more parties about what will or will not happen. And inside that agreement, all parties at all times can answer two questions: whose want is being fulfilled, and who's going into action on behalf of that want.
Okay.
And so the
Give us some
wheel,
real practical examples of that.
yeah, so the wheel is actually it looks like a wheel and it's divided into 4 quadrants, and we play inside of that. It's basically a practice where at one point you might ask somebody to have, and it's also touch based for the most part. It can be non-touched based, but primarily it's an embodiment practice, so people get this experience in their body. So one way to be inside the wheel would be asking you, Tiffany, what is something you would like to do to me?
Contribute to you, teach you, facilitate healing in
Okay.
my mentor capacity with you.
Okay. That could work. And another way I could position, so that would put you in the action position. You're doing something for my benefit,
Mhm.
right? So it actually puts you in the giving position and me in the receiving position.
Mhm.
The other way we could play this would be, Tiffany, What is something you would like me to do to you?
I would like you to send me pretty pictures of your naturesque, gorgeous neighborhood. I mean, it's
Okay.
just so pretty. And more like aurora borealis pictures and
Mm,
wildlife pictures, um, maybe even some videos of, like, cute things and, like, put it
okay.
in our WhatsApp group.
Oh, I was funny. I was trying to get a photo uploaded to have as my background, but it didn't work. Okay, so that would then put you in a receive position
Mhm,
and me in a giving position, but and I'm
mhm,
the one doing the act. I'm the one going into action, right?
mhm.
So the first one was, what would you like to do to me? Oh, sorry, I messed this up. What would you like to do to me is actually not for me, it's for you.
It's for me.
That's right. That's right. So you would actually be in the giving, you would actually be in the receiving position in that moment, because in the wheel, basically what we're doing is we're really teasing out the experience of receiving versus giving. And there's two ways to
Mm.
there's two ways to do it. You can either do the action on behalf of yourself,
Mhm.
or you could actually ask somebody to do it for you,
Okay,
right?
tell me more.
Um, so another way, and perhaps another easier way to do this would be, I know you have chickens, for example, right?
Yes.
So I could say, Tiffany, will you give me, or may I have a dozen eggs, right?
And
That would be me taking from you a dozen
mhm,
eggs versus, will you share with me a dozen eggs? That would be you giving them to me, right? I'm asking, or a different way would be, may I come over and pick a bushel of apples? That would be me coming over, having access to something that belongs to you and helping myself to it with
mhm.
your agreement. Yes, Joy, you may, but only from this one tree, for example, if you had multiple trees. So you would state your limits. You would state the boundaries inside of which I could do that, and I would operate inside of that. But I'd be the one going into action on behalf of something that I want. In this case, trees or apples from your tree.
Mhm.
The other way to look at it would be, Tiffany, will you give me a bushel of apples? Will you pick a bushel of apples for me from your tree? Still for me, but now you're doing the work
Mhm.
on my behalf. So there's two different ways to receive. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. And so what the wheel does is it actually gives people the opportunity to really experience, well, what would it be like for me to actually ask for something I want? Tiffany, I want apples from your tree. And there's a distinction between me being responsible for that want and me actually going into action for it. May I come and pick them? So
Mhm.
it opens up this whole experience of, oh gosh, what is it like, A, to notice something that I want and be responsible for it and actually ask for it and
Mhm.
even take action to fulfill on that, versus the flip side would be, What's it like to actually ask for something I want and actually ask somebody else to do it for me? And then the other side of things would be on your side, you could actually have the experience of what's it like for me to actually wholeheartedly, with a full heart, give access to somebody else to something I have with no attachment. In this case, the
Okay.
apples on your tree. Anyway.
So I'm seeing various energy exchanges as you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think from a human behavior perspective, there's so many assumptions that people have and expectations, which leads to lots of, feeling disrespected, dishonored, hurt, violated, upset, and being able to articulate and clarify more things around consent could save a lot of heartache, abuse, trauma. Can you speak to that nature?
Yeah, 100%. Um, the thing that it requires, though, is actually slowing down enough to be able to recognize, is this something that I want for myself? Is this something that I'm wanting, but only up to a particular limit? And then being able to communicate that. Or, how many people have had the experience of asking for something they want, and then once they get it, they're like, I really don't like this and I don't want it anymore. But I can't. I asked for it and I have to somehow tolerate what it is I asked for, because otherwise I'd look like a total fill in the blank. Right. So a big part of a big part of clarifying and having the conversation and coming to some kind of agreement actually calls for a person to be fully in the body and notice, oh, yes, I'm a yes to this fully, versus I was a yes and now no, or no, I'm not available to this.
Mhm.
So that, I think, is a big part of what the wheel of consent speaks to, is noticing what arises from within the body and then learning to communicate it.
Okay, I wanna tease that part out a bit. Okay.
Sure.
Um, Dating context.
Mhm.
Um, I've heard so I've been through some dating traumas,
Mhm.
date rape traumas in my life,
I'm sorry.
and I thank you, and I was working with a coach, a man, and, even when I'm having sex with my wife, if at any time, even right in the middle of sex, if she says no, I stop. Like that, it's just full stop. Right?
Right.
Because I honor her, it was such a light bulb moment, like flashing back to what had happened, and I feel like if there was more education around consent, for both parties, men and women,
100%. Yeah.
it could save a lot of people before trauma happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can save a lot of people before trauma happens. It can cultivate trust.
Mhm.
Oh, I can trust that when I say no, you're going to stop. So I don't have to manage. I can focus on my experience. I don't have to focus on my experience plus manage
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 What kind of mindset shifts do we need as a society to be able to even be open to this more conscious conversation? Because it's, I mean, off the top of my head, one is adding more empathy, adding more respect, deleting selfishness. You know? What do you think?
Wow, that's a big maybe I'll start with the selfishness piece because that's coming up first, because one of the quadrants of the wheel is actually the take quadrant.
Mhm.
And taking is typically perceived as a negative thing, right? Whereas inside the wheel, so long as there's an agreement, taking is very much permitted. And taking is there's something I want that I wanted and I want to go into action for it. So if we're talking about the context of romantic relationship and if we're talking about intimacy, often it's like I want access to your body and there's something I want to do to your body. Can I do that? Which is totally permissible so long as there's a clear agreement around how that's going to look. Um and so I think the shift that really has to happen is breaking down the stigma around I'm allowed to want what I want. I'm allowed to go into action and fulfill on something that I find desirable. Um, I think another stigma that maybe needs to happen within society is there's a wisdom in the body. That's constantly trying to make itself known and learning to listen to that and actually
Mhm.
follow that guidance as opposed to societal conditioning, if you will.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes back to when we were kids as infants, when, pre-verbal, there's a lot of touching that happens. And some of us were touched in ways that we didn't want to be touched. And so the way the brain develops, at some
Mhm.
point, we just kind of are like, oh, I guess being touched against my will or in a way that I don't like is just something I have to put up with. And
Mhm.
so dissecting all of that and kind of reprogramming the brain and generally speaking, reprogramming society's relationship to all of that, I think is the shift.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big
Mhm.
conversation. So I'm trying to boil
Totally.
it
I
down.
mean, like, it's very different when a parent or caregiver needs to take care of a child versus an adolescent or teenager or adult. Hmm. Like, my
Yeah.
philosophical head wants to go all these places
It's
where
big.
this discussion could go on for hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how does one have an embodied experience of giving versus receiving?
So we in the course in the workshop, we do this by playing what's called the 3-minute game. Um where we actually take turns being in sort of that uh dynamic that I was speaking to at the very start of our conversation. But before we even do that, what we actually start with is an exercise called waking up the hands, as in hands, right? Because so much of what we do in our day to day is focusing energy flowing out from our hands, right? Doing things for others, getting things done. Um, the attention is moving outwards. So the idea with giving and receiving really starts with learning to distinguish what feels good in our body, in the body, what feels good in the hands. So we actually start with an exercise where it involves taking an object and just literally feeling it, feeling up an object. And at the start, you'll notice all your attention goes out to the object. What is it? Where did it come from? Oh, this reminds me of, right? All of those things come up. And then at some point, if you really slow down, all of a sudden the attention then switches. Ideally, I mean, eventually that's where we were trying to get to. The attention goes to, oh, what does this feel like for me in the hands? Oh, I like the feeling in my palm, especially when I press really hard, or between the fingers, right? Like, so we really start to, and in that case, I'm the one taking action and I'm the one feeling. There's nobody else involved. So I'm actually in the receiving position, right? And for some people, it takes a really long time before it clicks.
Let's demo.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So just feel free to sit back, relax in such a way that you don't have to focus on holding any part of you up. All of your attention is going into your hands. And pick up an object. It could be a pen, it could be whatever you find close. And just slowly start feeling it. And just notice. Initially, it might be that you'll try and identify what the object is, what it might be made of, perhaps even where it comes from, which is all relevant. But now I'll guide you to turn your attention into the palm of your hands and notice, what are the sensations that you feel there? If you're moving the object across your hand, cut the speed by half. Does it change any of the sensations? Is there a particular part of the object that feels good versus another part that may not feel so good? Even play with pressure. What does it feel like lightly versus hard? You could even stop moving it and just hold it still. And just notice, that's all there is to do. And when you feel you've gotten it, what you'll notice is all of a sudden there'll just be this deep breath and you'll just melt right into it. You might even experience a sense of calm and relaxed. And then whenever you feel like it, you're welcome to put the object down and come back into the space. How was that?
Beautiful. I noticed that I I s- I with my dominant hand, I picked it up and it took a little bit more effort because I'm used to receiving with my non-dominant hand. Like when I'm doing
Ah,
healing, it's like
mhm.
receive, give, right? And so it was kind of a reversal of sensation.
Yep.
Um and on my pin, I could feel like what parts of it felt good, what parts of it didn't. Um And it was interesting, like, when I was just observing the pen, parts felt good, but then when I switched to feeling my hand, different parts felt good. It was interesting.
Fascinating.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's just all information, right? It's just literally waking up senses because this is pretty well the only place on our body apart from our mouth where we have the most, um, oh, I forget.
Well, like, the nerves for
Nerve
touch
endings.
and
Yes,
yeah.
that's what I was looking for. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, tell us about your workshop that starts tomorrow. And the link,
So it's
to
virtual.
register is also on streaming across the screen for those of you who want to get more info, but go
Beautiful.
ahead, Joya.
Yeah, so it starts tomorrow. It's 6 weeks. It's virtual, so it's via Zoom, and people from Europe, across North America are welcome to join. It doesn't quite work, I think, for folks in Australia. Um, it's from 9:30 a.m. Pacific to 12, so 2.5 hours long, and we meet for 6 Saturdays. So 6 Saturdays starting tomorrow, and what we're doing is we're working through basically all of the information that's available in Betty Martin. Betty Martin's the one who created this particular practice. And she has a book called The Art of Receiving and Giving. So we cover pretty well all of the information she lays out in that book. And we start with waking up the hands, even mapping out our nervous system to figure out because that becomes hugely important in terms of noticing what it is and connecting with what we want. And then waking up the hands and then slowly ratcheting it up, practicing asking one another for what we want. But mainly, the purpose of the workshop is unlike most workshops in that the objective is to notice what's arising for you and honoring that. So it's not so much in the doing of the exercises, it's in really noticing, am I really willing and available to participate in this exercise I'm being asked to do? And then honoring what's there. No, you know what? I want to sit this one out.
Hmm. Mhm.
Yeah. Or yes, I am. I am willing to practice. I am willing to do this exercise in a breakout room. Let me play. So, yeah, it's really different from the in-person in that because it's a virtual environment and we can't actually be with one another in a room and have access to touching one another, we typically only touch the hands when it comes to in-person workshops. In the virtual, it very much focuses on having people really tune in and notice, trust, value what arises in the body, and then practice communicating, asking for what it is that arises. And we do that over 6 weeks, sort of making each activity a little bit, um, not so much racy, but a little, we ratchet it up, like we ratchet up the flame a little bit. So by the end, hopefully
Interesting.
people pop and are like, oh my gosh, this is what it is to actually be in full receivership versus fully giving.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And for people who are interested, do they have to attend live or can they watch the recordings?
So, because the idea of this is practicing, noticing, trusting, valuing, there is actually a great degree of value in participating live. So, I really encourage people to actually participate live because a lot of it is in the moment. And I mean, that's kind of how life works, right? Is in the moment. So, although this is a far more secure container that people have more permission than we would out there in the world. I really do encourage people to attend live, and then recordings are available for people who participate and can't attend. I mean, stuff
Mhm.
happens. So there are times when people have to miss one or two, which is fine. But
Mhm.
a whole workshop, I would say, no, it'd be more advisable to attend live.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, I can see how meaty this could get and, like, really a deep dive in so many areas.
So many.
Um, you might, if you haven't already considered this, um, approach different nonprofits
Mhm.
that are abuse survivor or
Mm.
education to speak there.
Yes.
I'm on the team for Halo,
Okay.
Halo's Teal Gala, which is a gala to bring awareness and education and support and help for sexual trauma.
Mhm.
And our gala is a year from now, so April of
Mm.
2026,
Okay.
but we're already starting to look for speakers, sponsors, etcetera, vendors, so I can connect you and with
I
the decision makers on that. Maybe you'll wanna take a trip down to Southern California.
that would be amazing.
Get in the sun down here.
Yeah, no kidding. Um, well, let's stay in touch about that, shall we?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
keep the conversation going.
Well, thank you again for just touching the surface on this one and bringing this kind of conscious conversation into the ethers.
Thank you so very much, Tiffany, for the
Gosh.
opportunity
I
and for
mean,
the
if this
invitation.
was you're welcome. If this was taught in schools, like K through
Yeah.
12, holy crap, what a breakthrough that would be.
I'm getting goosebumps as you say that. Yeah, it would completely shift.
'Cause what would that look like, in kindergarten and elementary school and junior high and high school? Like, there could be an entire education curriculum for the teachers, for the parents,
Yeah.
for the kids of that age. I mean, it could go really big.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much, and appreciate your heart in this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for helping me get the word out.
My pleasure.
Hopefully it spreads like wildfire. Not that I want that particular. Yeah.
How about
Thank you,
spreads like
Tiffany.
heart fire or something?
Ah, there we go. Spread like heart fire. That's a better one.
All right. Much love
Thank
and
you, Tiffany.
blessings.
To you too.